What's up, everybody? It is Jason Todd with Punk Rock Talk. I am excited to be back here doing new episodes, and I am really excited for my first guest back. It is Rotten Stitches. What's up, fellas?
What up?
We got
Happy to be
Jason
back.
Jordan here. Yeah, man, happy to have you guys back. It has been a minute.
Yeah.
A lot's been going on for you guys since the last time we did an interview. And I'm trying to remember, I think you guys were like my second or third guest. I didn't go back into the archives and look, but I remember that you guys were one of the first guests.
Yeah. I think it was like 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when last time we talked was we were getting ready to go on a tour with the Casualties, and we were in the middle of writing this album.
Right. Yeah, and that that tour ended up being something else.
It was a game changer for us, that's for sure, man. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. It had its moments, but that was a fun one, though.
Yeah, lots of ups and downs, but the pros definitely outweighed the cons for sure.
No doubt, man. And it's super cool that we're revisiting things now in regards to the new record. Because like you said, last time you guys were writing this record. Now it's done. It's out.
Yep.
It's on Charged. Which is also super fucking cool. And that brings me to really my first official question with this is, how did that come about? Was it the tour with the Casualties and that relationship with Jake? I imagine that you guys might have met him prior to that tour, but didn't really have much of a relationship. Walk me through that. How did it all come together?
That's pretty accurate. We had talked to Jake in passing a couple times. We played with them a handful of times, but that tour was definitely like more genuine time together, not on stage, just hanging out.
And I remember it was actually in Cincinnati. It was like our second night on tour, and I was walking out of the green room, and he was just like, "Hey, why don't we get a record out together?" Yep. And I was like, We can do that. So that kind of kickstarted it.
Yeah. We were playing on that tour. We were playing a lot of the songs that are on the record. And he was just digging it. He really loved our set. And we were like, well, you want to put our record out? This is what's going to be on the record, man. Let's do it. And he was pumped. He was psyched. And
I'll give a shout out too to Kurt from Dismantled Records. He did that compilation, and we put Life is War, which is now on this record. We put that song on there, and he told us that he showed it to Jake, and not long after that we were on tour with the Casualties. So Kurt may have had a little hand in it also. So thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt.
Definitely, man. Big shout out to both those guys, Jake and Kurt. Jake has done so much for the scene over the years. I mean, we're talking decades at this point.
Yeah.
And, I was pumped to see him revitalize Charged. He hasn't put out like a lot of records or anything, but the fact that he's just releasing something and keeping the name out there is cool. But I also think it's kind of a nice stamp of approval. Like, this band is street punk. They deserve the recognition of, a label that is known for hardcore street punk. And Jake is in arguably the biggest street punk band in the world.
For sure.
So that's really cool. Especially, since it was his idea and you guys weren't like, trying to put the idea in his brain. He just, he was asking you, and that's fucking rad. And then of course, Kurt has done so much in a very short period of time. Dismantled, has definitely made a name for itself. And Kurt, you could tell he loves doing it, even though it's really shitty sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. He said one time, he was like, I just want to keep punk alive.
Yeah.
And I think that sums it up. You know what I mean? For him, he's a killer dude, and he's as punk as it gets. And I mean, he's definitely doing his part, and it's sick to see how much he's growing for sure.
He's a great guy. You can tell he's got a lot of love for what he does.
Absolutely. I mean, when we were talking with him about our new record, um, we knew that Voltage wanted to put it out, and initially they were like, "We want to put it out exclusively," um, which we didn't agree to right off the bat. But we said, we'll consider that. Um, but when we mentioned to him, like, "Hey, Kurt from Dismantled is actually interested in distributing this on the U.S. side," there was no pushback from that. Um, and the cool thing about it is that Kurt got a color variant that was only available through Dismantled. Um, and he was very involved with trying to make sure that it was getting put out there here in the States for us. So, yeah, man, a lot of love to that guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, Charge, that was definitely it was a childhood dream come true for us, you know what I mean? It's definitely, Charge Records back when we were growing up, 14, 15 years old. That's exactly what I envisioned I wanted to put a record out on, you know what I mean? So
And here we are.
it's sick.
Yeah. And we Charged also partnered up with Voltage, and so we have European distribution through Voltage as well.
That's great. Yeah, because you guys haven't had anything that's had European distribution before, have you? Yeah,
No,
This is our first time too.
yeah, so that's good for you guys, man. That's going to get your name out there for sure, and hopefully open up some other doors for you guys in the future.
for sure. And we're
Um,
hoping Europe is in the plans for us. Hopefully next year.
yeah, man, we've been talking about the same. We've been asked a couple of times, like, do you guys want to come over here? We're like, fuck yeah, we do. But it's just always about logistics and getting stuff booked,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Yep.
And I think part of that too is like, even though it's been a while now, I think we're still very much living in this whole like post COVID world.
Yeah.
And like, shit's just changed, man. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm still seeing people cancel stuff because of it. Fortunately, it's not as severe as it was before, but it's just like just part of the reality now.
Yeah.
It's
It's definitely a post-COVID world now.
Yeah. So you guys have been working really hard on getting this new record out there to the people, but not a tour yet. So what's in the works for that?
Right now we have a 3-show run. It was 4, but it's with the Exploited and Total Chaos, which is another fucking dream come true of ours. Um, but Waddy is not doing the New Orleans date because he said it's too much for him. We can't fault him for it. The man's old as hell. So, how many heart attacks has he had now, and he's still keeping punk alive. But so we're not doing New Orleans anymore, but we are doing Atlanta, South Carolina, and Florida with them. And so we're going to just really push that album out there.
And we have a tour in the works, but it's kind of the logistics, like you were just talking about. It's not going to happen as soon as we were hoping it would, but something will be coming up soon.
It's supposed to be November, and then November came up and is way too close now. And we're like, yeah, we got to push it back. Maybe by the end of the year, we're hoping to do a 2-week run.
We also might do a couple like weekend things, like 3-day weekend runs, maybe like through Texas and up north.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Just kind of hit everywhere for a couple days, but it's still in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have really come to the conclusion, at least right now, that those, weekend bangers, 3 shows, maybe 4 if it's a holiday weekend or something, is really the way to go these days.
Yeah.
Like, because of the economy, especially, like people are just struggling to pay their bills. So,
Yeah.
bands trying to tour, with the cost of fuel, the cost of food, the cost of lodging, all of that stuff is just insane. So
That's up.
yeah, man, trying to do it for 2 weeks. I mean, I hope it comes together for you guys because it'd be great promo for the record. Um, you know, but if it doesn't, it might be for the best. You know, at least those weekend runs won't hurt the pocketbook too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it comes down to. A lot of it comes down to that too. But also, I feel like there's so many festivals nowadays that a lot of people kind of save up their money because they don't have much money to go out to festivals and see all the bands they want to see. You know what I mean? So it's if you're not playing a weekend show, then those Tuesdays and Wednesdays, those hurt on the road. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Doing an actual tour, I consider you have to get through the Monday to Thursday because those are the hardest days on tour to actually pull a crowd, be strategic enough to get this band, that band that is really pulling people. Can they play weekdays? Nobody wants to play a fucking weekday. Nobody wants to go to a weekday show. But when you're doing an actual tour, you got to make it to the next weekend somehow. You can't just fucking spend money all week, not make any money. You gotta do it, you know? It's
Yeah,
hard.
I agree with you. I mean, for the Havoc, it's always been a rule that we won't play Mondays and Tuesdays.
Yeah, we'll skip Mondays and some Tuesdays too. Yeah.
Especially after the weekend because, by the end of Sunday, you've been pushing hard for 4 days, 5 days, whatever. And like, you need that break, that couple of days
yeah,
Yeah.
just to like kind of recover. And like, I mean, Jake, as a vocalist, like doing it
Yeah.
day in and day out, for a string of shows, it just gets harder and harder as the days go. And you need those couple of days to let your voice recover.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. We did a tour last September with Call the Cops. We did 2 weeks up and down the East Coast and we took the Mondays off. And by the end of each Sunday, I was like, uh-oh, my voice is starting to fucking go. I'm fucking guzzling down a bottle of honey and taking cough drops and shit. Hot honey, hot tea, like every remedy that you can think of, I was doing. I never lost my voice. I'm pretty good at not losing my voice, but it does scare me sometimes when you go fucking 6 days in a row screaming your fucking guts out. You know.
Totally. I mean, the benefit to recording is that you can take your time with it and make sure that the vocals come out exactly how you want. And if you're having an off day, it's not the end of the world, but when you're on the road and you're having an off day, like you feel it, it's noticeable to other people. And because everybody has a smartphone now, they're recording anything and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and
it's like the day of too, leading up, and your voice is kind of shot, and you're trying to do everything to keep it, and it's not there. It
yeah.
definitely sucks.
I actually just saw, I imagine you guys probably saw it too today, that Jane's Addiction are on tour, and like it's like a reunion thing for them or whatever. And their singer Perry, he attacked Dave Navarro at the gig last night, and
I did see something about that.
I
yeah,
did.
and so I was like, "What the fuck is this about?" And so I started digging a little bit, reading into comments and whatever. And what I learned is that I guess night after night he's been saying, like, the singer Perry's been like, "Guys, it's the stage volume is too loud. I can't hear myself. I'm pushing as hard as I can, and I can't even hear what notes I'm singing." And I guess last night was the tipping point for him because he was just screaming. Like, he had no idea. Like, he couldn't hear shit. So I guess he took his anger out on Dave Navarro. Um,
Oh god.
but like, I think at punk rock, like, we can get away with a lot vocally, like, because nobody's expecting you to carry a perfect melody, you know.
Right.
But like for a rock show, it's a different ball game, and when the singer can't hear
Yeah.
himself, it's definitely frustrating.
Oh yeah, you're playing stadiums to thousands of people. Yeah,
Yeah.
it matters a little more.
Right. And like I was saying, everybody has a smartphone now and they're recording everything. So of course, like his blow up on stage, it was recorded and now it's out there for
Yep.
everybody to see.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
man.
but yeah, man, like going back to what you were saying about going on the road with just for a few days with Exploited and Total Chaos, man, like you talk about two bands that are absolutely at legendary status now. I mean, the Exploited's been legendary even before Total Chaos, but now Total
Oh yeah.
Chaos is definitely in that category. They've been doing it for so long. Um, and talking about Waddy still going out there, still keeping punk alive,
Yep.
and his health has been up and down. Uh, I actually think it's incredible that he's still alive.
Fuck
Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember some years back now seeing pictures of him on tour and his weight was really out of control. And I was like, God, I can't even believe this is the same guy. Um,
Yeah.
but now I look at him, I'm like, I can't believe that's the same guy. He's pulled off all that
Right.
weight and he looks fantastic.
He looks great, man. He's staying active. I follow him and he's big into playing soccer, or I'm sorry, football.
Yeah.
They play football. um, so he's got like a team and everything that he plays with, and he's very active, very healthy right now. I know he like what was it last like not even that long ago, like not even like half a year ago, he had to have another heart surgery, right?
I don't know. He had something happen that he had to cancel all his California dates. Some
Yeah.
shit.
And so that kind of like hit us, and we were like, "Oh shit, man, is this even going to happen with Exploited now?" Because it was in the talks, it was in the works, but when that happened, it kind of shook us all. We're like, "Oh man, is this really going to happen?" Don't want to hype it up for it to fall apart. But he seems to be doing great.
What's crazy to think about is the Exploited are so well known all over the world that I would not be surprised if his surgeon knew who he was before he had to operate on him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he knew it's at stake.
Yeah, right? Like that guy's thinking, this guy's a fucking punk rock icon. Like, I cannot fuck this up.
Yeah.
um,
Punk's not dead because of you, my man.
yeah, right. Well, like the Exploited to me are kind of in that same boat as the Casualties, like they're for 80s hardcore punk rock, they're like the poster boys, just like the Casualties are the poster boys for 90s street punk.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think that they really brought the image to the forefront and, upped it to a whole other level. Um, and that has made a lasting impression on the image in punk rock. I mean, since they put it out there, I mean, it's still prevalent
Yeah.
today.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I remember like the first time I saw the cover art for the Troops of Tomorrow record. Uh, like they're coming out of like some fucking gutter with all these zombies behind them and shit. And I mean, it's not an actual photo. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, that is what those guys look like. And I just remember looking at those guys and being like, this is the fucking coolest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you guys something while we're still on this topic about the Exploited, because I know like a lot of people in the scene have mixed feelings about this, but they put out records that are more on the metal side, uh, in the late 90s, and maybe even early 2000s, I think. And I actually really love those records. Have you guys ever
Yeah.
taken the opportunity to listen to like Beat the Bastards?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah,
Hell
dude.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beat the
like
bastard and system, fuck the system. Like great records, love them. Honestly, my opinion, I think it's a perfect fucking blend of hardcore punk and with that little dash of fucking metal in there, man. It's very well done.
I agree. And you know, like when those records came out, like a lot of punks would turn their nose up. You know, like, nah, this is too metal or whatever. But you know, I've always been a huge metalhead and a punk rocker. So when I heard it for the first time, I was like, holy shit. Like I've always thought that the Exploited is like you know one of the more intense punk bands on the planet, but with those records, it was like wow, they injected the intensity of modern metal into their sound, and it's even more extreme.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, a band's going to progress and try new shit anyway. I like to see that, you know what I mean? So,
Casualties did the same thing too, man. They incorporated a lot of metal in like their album Resistance, you know, and a lot of people kind of gave them shit for that. But I mean, shit, at the level that they're at, they're gonna progress. They're gonna do what they do, and people are gonna love it or they're gonna hate it.
Well, and Jake is like a known metalhead also. I mean, he's not been shy about that at all. And
Yep.
you know, when a band branches out their sound like that, it just opens up different doors for them. I mean, the Casualties have been on tour with bands like Municipal Waste, you know,
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
and like that's a whole other audience. And
Yep.
you can't tell me that there aren't people that show up to a Municipal Waste show that aren't familiar with the Casualties, see them, and don't think, wow, that band is pretty fucking rad.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And
Um,
it makes them more flexible for bands that they can play with, like you said, like Municipal Waste, and you know, makes them more flexible.
and the Casualties are one of those bands that, you know, they've been doing it for so long that touring is just what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And there's only so many punk bands that you can tour with over
Yeah,
and over
exactly.
again before it's like, nah, man, we've done that so many times. Like, we need to do
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah, street punk is such a niche community that you're right, it's very tight knit. What's done has been done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Total Chaos, same. But dude, like those guys just don't fucking stop, man. Like
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years ago. I looked at all their tour dates for, I believe it was 2022, and it was like over 250 dates total.
Damn.
Damn.
Yeah, dude. Like they just don't fucking stop.
That's 2/3 of the year right there. Like
Yeah.
just living on the road.
Yeah. And you know, it's not like they're living it up rock star status. Like those guys, I mean, they came through here with Acedes earlier this year, and
Yeah.
it was a weeknight. I think it was a like no, I take that back. It was a Sunday night, and there was maybe 100 people there, and like, I mean, the venue itself could hold, I think it's close to 400 capacity. So 100 people in there doesn't look that full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But I mean, Total Chaos got up there and they put on a show like they were playing for a full room. You know, just no
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I think I've only seen them once. We played with them here in Atlanta a couple of years ago. I think
Yep.
that's the only time we played with them. But yeah, they're killer. I mean, I see how they can stay on the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like you said, man, you play to 10 people, you play to 100 people or 1,000 people, you should always give it 110% on stage.
yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
you know, they were on the road with Acedes, another one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love those dudes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I had not had the chance to see them yet. So I was like, "There's no fucking way I'm gonna miss them," because I had something else going on the next day, um, that I had to be up early for. I know I had to work the next day, and like I get up fucking early for work. Um,
Same.
but I thought, okay, Acedes will play before Total Chaos, so I'll at least see all of Acedes set, and I'll stick around for Total Chaos and watch, you know, at least a quarter of the set before I need to get home and you know whatever. But that's not what happened. Total Chaos played before Acedes, and I was like, okay, well, I am not going to miss any of Acedes set. So I stayed up way later that night than I had planned. Um, but I asked Roto like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you guys playing after Total Chaos. He's like, dude, we got so fucked up last night that we woke up really late this morning. So we were behind schedule getting to the gig. So, so, so that was the only option. And I was like, damn, dude. But you wouldn't know that they were, you know, hungover as fuck on stage when they played because they were tighter than a fucking virgin on prom night.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait to see those dudes.
Yeah.
I watch all Roto push so much shit, and they're just a killer band. I love that thrash
So
shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're another band that started out as like a street punk outfit and went a thrashier direction, and man, they fucking do it right, dude. They're so good.
Yeah, that latest record in Punk We Thrash, man, like it
Yeah.
has like that perfect blend.
Yep.
And what's cool about that too is like they don't sound like a generic street punk band anymore. You know, like they've carved out a sound for themselves that when you put it on, you're like, okay, that is a C-Des.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they got that signature sound down to a T. They're good.
Absolutely, man. Which brings me up to talking about your guys' style. When I listen to this newest record, I hear a lot of those late 90s influences. But it doesn't sound exactly like those bands. Like there's moments where I'm listening to it and I'm like, okay, that kind of reminds me of a Global Threat. And then there's other instances where I'm listening to it, I'm like, okay, yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Casualties. But none of it is like a direct copy of anything. It has this healthy blend of these different influences. But I think the thing that stands out the most to me that I'm like, okay, I know who I'm listening to is because of the vocals. Like, Jake, your voice just has this quality to it that is a higher rasp that I haven't heard since A Global Threat, where I'm like,
Fuck yeah.
like that, because it's one of those things where like that higher rasp, it either works or it doesn't,
Yeah.
you know?
You either got it or you don't.
Yeah. But when I hear it, I'm like, okay, this vocal is perfect for this blend of street punk. So I am curious just about like how you have worked on your voice over the years to get it in that register. Like, is that something that like you intentionally worked up to, or is that just natural for you?
A little bit of both, man. I did actively focus on progressing my vocal style, especially the past 5 years. Uh, I wanted to be, I wanted to be clean, be able to enunciate, but I'm still fucking screaming, projecting, uh, pissed off as all hell. You know what I mean? But keeping my signature sound that I've always done. And
It used to be so much deeper, though.
yeah, I used to be way guttural and
Mhm.
raw and deep and fucking nasty. And it's fair to say we didn't really take shit too seriously back then. We were just a bunch of drunk assholes. And the past 5 or so years we got more serious, and all of us progressed with all of our instruments in the band significantly, and I was no different. I just wanted to be better, and a lot of it was natural too. I think it just came with us practicing every single week. Like that's we always look forward to seeing each other every week and practicing, jamming out, and it's like our fucking therapy, man. Um, we love practicing every week and just getting better and better and progressing, and definitely pride ourselves on our signature sound that just kind of stands out from the rest.
When I started to get familiar with you guys and, looking at photos of the band and figuring out who's who and what's what, and learning that you were the vocalist, that whole, guttural sound is what I imagined. Like this guy's got a burly, deep voice.
Yeah.
But then to hear your vocal like on this record where it's so much higher in the register, I'm like, man, that is impressive. Because usually the
Thank you.
bigger guys, they do have that lower register.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
for me personally, I was always in the opposite boat. Like in all of the early Havoc stuff, my voice naturally was just that really high pitched scream. And, as the years went on and I started experimenting with different vocal sounds and, different genres, especially getting into metal and everything, where like the guttural vocal is just so prominent. It's in everything. But that's like, it's an art form on its own. And you have to really learn to do it. Nobody is just
Yeah.
naturally like able to have a guttural growl at such a low register. I mean, you have to build up your
No.
voice to that. Um,
Yeah.
but then whenever like coming back to do new Havoc material, at that point I had been doing metal vocals for so long that trying to do the higher register stuff felt odd. Like,
Well, you said it on that new record, man.
oh,
Yeah, man.
thanks, man. I kind of had to like make this adjustment vocally to where like, okay, I can't be this really high pitched thing. I can't do that like I did when I was 20, but doing this really low thing that, I've been doing for years and a metal band, that's not appropriate for this. So I had to find this middle ground, and I'm really happy with, where my voice settled into on those songs.
Yeah.
Um, but
I'm in the exact same boat, but kind of the opposite. The same, but the opposite. I made the same realization that like my vocal style wasn't really what what the sound that we were looking for, and I wanted to be a little higher and a little cleaner than I was doing.
yeah.
And now we're really happy with it. It just feels like it all came together like fucking pieces of a
I
puzzle.
think we all said that too during the recording process when we got to the vocal parts and we were finally hearing it recorded. We are like, dude, you are right where we've been wanting you to get. You know what I mean? We were all stoked
It's a
on
good
how his
feeling.
vocals came out.
Jake, you touched on something important too that I think a lot of people don't really consider, especially in punk rock, the enunciation. I mean,
Yeah,
it really makes a huge difference.
huge difference.
I mean, I remember, recording early demos for my first band in high school, and like, yeah, I just, it's just punk rock, just scream your guts out, you know.
Yeah,
Uh, but then when you listen back, like what you're saying, right?
nobody
And so
else
it
Yeah.
makes
does.
sense to you, but then somebody
Yeah,
else are like, "What the fuck is he saying?"
yeah, and that that kind of got under my skin, man. Whenever people would be like, "I don't know what the fuck you're saying," I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I fully relate to that, dude. And you know what's funny about that? Like for me, as a vocalist, I I've just always had an appreciation for language, the English language, and
me
like
too.
wordplay, uh,
Yeah,
all that stuff, like, and even like grammar and spelling. For some
yeah,
reason, I've been good at it and I've enjoyed
me
it.
too, man. I've always been a language nerd, and I love play on words, like you said, man. Like, um, if you get a copy of our record, we have a lyric sheet in there, and I love the writing that I come up with, man. It's so much fun. And when I was a kid, before I even had a band or anything like that, um, I had to do like therapy and shit like that. And my therapist told me start writing, keep a journal, and I did. And I even after therapy, I stuck with it. I just kept writing and loving writing. And I used to write lyrics for a band that didn't even exist. I would just write lyrics just for the fun of it. just because I dreamed of being in a band one day as a kid, you know. And yeah, I think it all paid off in the end because my writing, you know, I'm not trying to fucking sound egotistical or anything like that, but I definitely take a lot of pride in my work that I do.
No, man, I don't think that sounds egotistical at all. I mean, of course, that's coming from another vocalist. But no, like, I mean, I think that in a punk band, you're not just writing songs for the fuck of it. You know, there's a message there, and the message is important. And people can't understand the message if they can't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I I felt so diehard about that, especially on this new record. I wanted to make sure that I was enunciating things as well as possible because, like you, I take a lot of pride in the lyrics that I come up with. You know, that is my intellectual property.
Yes.
And when you're a fan of language and you're also an artist, you want to make sure that your art is being represented the best way possible.
Exactly.
You know, so when I track vocals, I don't have anybody else in the room with me. And I don't take critiques from anybody else because I have learned that usually someone else will settle on a vocal that I'm not happy with because they think
Yep.
it sounds good.
Yep.
And then what happens is I end up becoming disappointed in the performance and it's there and it can't be changed later on.
Yeah.
You know, so I will work relentlessly on my vocals by myself, hour after hour after hour, until I know, okay, this satisfies me and it meets my expectations. Because if it meets my expectations, I don't give fuck all what anybody else's expectations are on it because I know it meets mine.
Yep. Yeah, no, I definitely feel you on that. When we were in the studio for this album, there was a few times, more than a few times, where I would do a line, do a scream here, whatever, and I'd be like, all right, let me hear that back, and I'd hear it, and everyone would be like, yeah, man, that sounded great, that's awesome, that's it, and I'd be like, no, one more take, and then I'd get it just how I wanted, and I'm like, yes, there it is.
That's the struggle of being a vocalist, man. Like it's that thing of like convincing yourself. Like because I think a lot of it is we're just always so much in our own head.
Yeah,
Um and other people just aren't there. You know, they don't live in that space like we do.
right.
But once you are satisfied with it, it's like, okay, I can listen to that again and again and again and again and again and again and never get tired of it and be proud of myself that I accomplished what I had set out to do vocally, lyrically, musically, all of those things. Um,
Absolutely, man, 100%.
I know we've been talking about vocals for a little bit now, and I do want to move on to another subject soon. But before we do that, I actually have a fan question, and I'm going to put on my old man glasses so I can read it.
Cool. Yeah.
Uh, if you're watching this now, I had a Instagram live stream that I did just before this interview where I was asking people if they have questions for the band that they can submit them. So if you're watching this now and you want to ask questions to the bands that I'm going to be interviewing, you can do that on Instagram. Just submit the questions to our DM box there. But this question comes from Pyron.Jeff. He asks, how did Dave record his parts for the record?
That took some coordinating for sure.
I
It took
bet.
a lot of planning and coordinating. You know, he's one of the busiest motherfuckers you can name right now with everything that he's doing.
3 fucking
But
bands?
yeah, but so we caught him at a good time because he was in the midst of recording the Fire, the Fang, and the Truth. The Starving Wolves new record.
Yeah.
Forgive me if that was wrong. It was 2/3 were correct. I know that.
Thinking the wolf.
The Wolf,
Yeah,
yes,
the
the Fire, the Fang, and the Wolf.
Yeah.
Which is one of my all-time favorite records right now by far. But he was in the midst of recording that at the time, and it was just perfect timing, man. It just lined up perfectly for us. He already wanted to do tracks on a record with us, and yeah, it just worked out. We just had to wait for him to hit the studio with Starving Wolves, and when he did, he was like, "All right, I got some time put aside. Let's do this." I sent him the lyrics a couple weeks prior, and he practiced, and we talked on the phone a couple times and just made sure that everything was how we wanted it to sound.
And we just sent the engineer the tracks,
Yep.
So to answer that question, yeah, he just did it from Texas.
And his studio, and his engineer sent it to our engineer.
Right on. Did you already track all of your vocals on it before you sent it to him?
Yeah, I was already done.
And did you track parts that were supposed to be his vocal part too?
Yeah, and in the record, we do the parts together. Me and him together.
Yeah, because that's one of the interesting things about being a vocalist is the interpretation. Like, you have it in your mind how something's going to be sung with a type of cadence and rhythm and enunciation, right?
Yeah.
And another vocalist can look at that same set of lyrics, listen to the same song, and deliver it completely different.
Yep. But it definitely did help that I had already had the lines and tracks recorded, so he had kind of like a guideline of how to do it, but with his own style of vocals. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I love about that dude is he is still just as humble today as he was the day that I met him. We're talking 23 years ago, I think, is when I first met him. And, one, to be in the position that he got put into, to front the casualties. I mean, that was a tall order.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And if it hadn't have worked, who knows if the Casualties would even still be a band now.
Yeah.
But it did work. And actually, I've talked to a lot of people that favor Dave's vocals over the old stuff. And I could say live, I favor his performances.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Man.
George Baker stood there.
Yeah. I mean, he has the energy, the presence, and he knows how to work the crowd.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think they made the best move. I think his style, his sound, he's like the only one that could have done it.
Yeah. And he's such a phenomenal front man too. Like just everything that he does, the energy, the crowd interacting, like he's a great front man.
Yeah, and a lot of people being put in that position, they could have let that go to their head and think, I'm the fucking cock of the walk now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not him.
No.
He,
like you said, man, he is the most humble dude, and he always has been. And that's something that has always really inspired me too, is I try my best to always stay humble. Like earlier I was saying, I'm not trying to sound egotistical, but like it's good. Being humble will take you a lot further than having a big head,
100%. Okay, we've talked a lot about vocals, which of course I really enjoy. But there's other things that we definitely need to talk about with this new record. So I'd really like to talk about the guitars. Jordan, like, what was your process for that? I mean, the record to me sounds like everything was recorded analog mic'd to cabs. It doesn't sound like everything was digital. I could be wrong, but what was your approach on that?
It was actually digital.
Really?
Yeah. But as far as the approach to writing or recording, if you're asking,
recording.
Really, we went to Lead Belly Studios here in Georgia, up in the mountains of Georgia, and Matt Washburn is the engineer's name. And really, I kind of handed it to him to, you know what I mean, kind of take the lead on it. I recorded with him with one of my other bands, so I kind of knew how he worked, and he's a great engineer. He's good at hearing what you're trying to accomplish, you know, and working with you like that. But recording in like a real studio was new to us. That was the first time we'd ever been to like a real studio. Everything else has been us, you know what I mean? Well, Punching Through Mirrors was recorded in another home studio. Um, but Matt is like the real deal. You know, he recorded Mastodon and he records a lot of bigger bands. So yeah, I kind of let him take the lead on all that since it was so new to us. But I definitely had a vision, and I'm definitely kind of like you said in the studio, how you are with your vocals. I'm very picky.
Picky, yeah.
So
It's good to be that way, though.
Yeah.
I'll keep playing over and over again, and eventually, he, you know, like I said, he figured out what I was going for. So
That's impressive because, you know, to my ear, I was thinking, yeah, this sounds like a mic'd cab. But that's also a testament to how good digital has become. You know, like
yeah,
the options are literally endless.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I mean,
it's
it's
remarkable.
crazy.
And also what's interesting about what you're saying, you know, with his background, like recording Mastodon and bigger bands or whatever, that explains to me why the drums sound as big as they do. Um, because
He's also
one thing I like about the record is, to me, it doesn't sound like a recording. It sounds live, but it sounds live, but also recorded, if that makes
right.
sense. You know,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
it doesn't lose the energy of the live feeling like a lot of demos do. You know, like you can hear a band live and then they'll track, you know, something as a demo, and it very obviously sounds recorded, sounds like a demo, and isn't a good representation of what that band actually sounds like. But this record sounds like what you guys sound like live.
And
yeah,
that
man.
was definitely intentional. That
Yeah,
was those drums took a lot of work because of that we didn't want to lose that. Our energy is what we have going
that
for us, you
authenticity
know.
of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely intentional for it to sound like that, but still recorded, like you said.
Yep.
You know, one of the things that is also crazy about digital now is so many bands program their drums. And I
Yeah,
mean, unless you are a musician yourself, unless you are an engineer or a producer, if you're a casual listener, you're not going to know that. You're not going to pick up on it. Um,
yeah,
but and that works really well for rock records. It works really well for metal records, but for punk rock, not so much.
No,
yeah. No,
You
I
know, like,
use I use it for writing, but you know, just enough to get demos made to send to the band and stuff.
but that's as far as that
But
goes.
yeah, I would never. I don't even spend much time programming the drums. I just get
Basic.
a basic beat going because I'm gonna let Clay, our drummer, do his thing anyway. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, I don't. I guess you're right. The normal person might not hear it, but I hate when I hear some programmed
I hate
drums.
it. Yeah, yeah. To
yeah,
us, it's obvious. We could point it out quick.
yeah. Well, I've heard some stuff again coming out more in like the contemporary rock genre or the contemporary metal genre, metalcore bands or whatever, where I thought, okay, that's a studio drummer. And then I learned later that the drums were completely programmed. And it's like, wow, that is gnarly that it can be that precise, but also feel human. And it's not.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and you know, I guess like you said, you don't hear that too much in punk, so I guess that's why maybe I could pick it out easier. But yeah,
yeah.
I guess I'm sure there's some great programmed drums out there that you can't hardly tell.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, we had the same approach when we did our new record. Like we knew, I mean, we always programmed drums whenever we're demoing. And like we have an idea of what the beat is going to be and all that, you know. And for me, the biggest thing is just the tempo. Like I want to make, like I hear this song a certain tempo in my head, and I want to make sure that I capture that in the demo, because if it's too slow or too fast, it ruins the intended energy of that song.
100%.
Yep.
Yep.
So I will always make sure that I'm happy with a tempo of whatever I'm writing before I even present it to the band, because I
Yeah.
don't want to present them with another option that they might become attached to when I'm not satisfied with it yet. So I'll make sure that I've got the tempos that I like. I'll submit those to the band, and then our drummer, he's fantastic. So he listens and he's like, okay, I see what's going on here, but let me go in there and actually track this with my fills, and
Yeah.
and he always takes it to that whole other level that I wouldn't even think of when it comes to programming.
Yeah.
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 And that's just the benefit of having a human drummer that understands the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's nice too, because when I'm figuring out tempos and stuff, I'll account for live. Everything's always a little faster live,
Yeah.
So I try not to plan on that. I want us to sound, on tempo, but I think about that too. So, but I'm big on the same thing. Before I send a demo, I want the tempo to be exactly right. And when I'm presenting it to the band and we start playing it for the first time, I'm definitely picky. Like, no, we're going way too fast, way too slow.
Yeah.
It's important.
Tempo's definitely been a big focal point for us lately. We've our drummer Clay, he just turned 40 yesterday. Actually, happy birthday, Clay!
Happy birthday,
But
dude.
he got some like headphones that he can hear metronome in. So
Yeah.
while we're practicing, like when we're writing new songs, especially like in the writing process, we'll all be like, all right, this is the tempo. Go ahead and set your metronome to that, and we'll practice the song to that tempo every time. So it's just drilled into his head,
Yeah. We do the exact same thing, guys. Will has an in-ear set, and we know what the tempos are for every song, and we rehearse them at that tempo, and
Yep.
we play them live at that tempo. But the thing about a really, really good drummer is that they don't have to be a slave to the tempo. They can play around the tempo to where it's like they're still there, but there's something to be said about the pocket, like typically in punk, especially drummers like to rush the fills,
Yeah.
and it's only natural that after you have completed a fill with that increased tempo, adrenaline is going to say, stay on that course, right?
Yeah.
So by the time you end the song, you're at least 10 dB faster than what you started it with.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But a drummer that understands that they don't have to be a slave to the tempo, to the click track, but they can work around it. They can play through that fill, and even if they rush it, whenever they get back into that next section, boom, they'll lock back in with that click and keep it where it needs to be.
Yep.
Yep. So we're promoting this album we just released, but we're already also halfway through writing the next one. And so that'll be the first album that we've really started rehearsing with a click track. So starting to follow in y'all's footsteps, basically. But we didn't do that for this one. That didn't really come to mind. He didn't even use a metronome. That's why it has that live feel.
Yeah.
He tried for the first day of recording. We tried, and he just basically he was like, "I don't like how this is feeling."
Yeah.
He wanted it to feel live, but we accepted that metronome makes everything in recording a lot easier. So
Yep.
we're working on that. But the next album we're working on, it really goes back to how important that tempo is on everything we're writing now. There's really not much room to fuck around on anymore. So I guess we're getting a little more professional.
Well, you're going through the same thing that every musician that is serious about goes through, to reach a higher level of professionalism, but also performance.
Yeah.
And I remember our first experience working with a click track. Same thing. It was in the studio, and back then it was like time is money. Every hour costs
Yep.
here,
Yep.
and every hour that you don't make progress is just money down the drain.
Yep.
Yep.
Uh, and same thing. It felt very odd, because you're essentially going against that adrenaline. You're
Yep.
going against what your brain is telling you, because the click does not lie,
Yeah.
No, yeah.
you know?
And it's another thing to pay attention to if you're not used to it. You know what I mean? I'm not a drummer, but I could only imagine it's just one more fucking thing.
Yeah. But you guys will benefit so much from that with your live show, because especially like what you're doing now with the songs that you're writing them and rehearsing them to that click. So by the time you present those songs live to an audience, it's going to be so tight. You guys are just going to be a much tighter unit.
Exactly. And that's the goal.
That's the
And
goal.
like you said, it's just us taking ourselves more seriously than we used to. And I mean, yeah, I want to be the best we can possibly be. I'm always trying to progress. So I want the band to be doing the same.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we've been talking a lot about the musical side of this record, but I want to talk about what the message of this record is. A lot of times, records, each song kind of has its own individual message, and sometimes those songs culminate into an overall general message. So I'm curious to know, what was the intended message for this record?
Yeah, each song does have its own special message, but overall the record does have a important message of mental health awareness. We started writing this album in 2020, and which was a very dark year for everyone in the whole fucking world. Um, I had a roommate, a best friend of ours, went on many tours with us. His name is Jesse Crust, and he passed away. Um, and it left us all really hurt, and it was a big eye opener for a lot of us. I'm still sober to this day because of his death. Um, so like I said, a lot of it is mental health awareness, um, getting through the dark times. From ashes rise. It's kind of speaks for itself. We got a phoenix on the cover. You know, the world's in fucking ashes, and we're gonna rise out of it. And we're gonna be on top, and we ain't gonna stop fighting. Um,
We all went through a lot of shit during
Yeah.
the writing process of this album. It was like, it was a couple really tough years that we all went through. Um, he does all the writing of the lyrics and everything, but it's funny. Me and him are so like connected that when I write riffs, I'll be like, I think I hear this, whether it's just a word or a phrase, and he'll take off with it. And yeah, I think it. He said it best. It's just about mental health awareness and everything, but it's a lot of heart went into all these songs just because we were all going through dark times.
from Jesse dying, getting sober, all of us. It's not just me. Really chilled out with the heavier drugs, and you know, as we got older, um, life hits harder. I became a dad in 2020 as well. Um, that was not an easy acceptance for me, and the circumstances were not pretty. But I have full custody of my daughter now, and I love her with all my heart. And she's a big reason that I'm still here now, as well as the band.
But also, the world was going through such a shit show at the time that I think anywhere you looked, you could almost find something to write about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
A lot of it is the social issues that the world was having. You know, a lot of people, 2020 and the years after, even today, are just like a make it or break it moment in everyone's life. And you can either let the weight of the world make you crumble and fall, or you can be stronger through it, through all the hardships and the struggles, and come out on top, be stronger for it.
I have to say a couple of things. One, congratulations on your sobriety, man.
Thank you, dude.
You're welcome. Um, you know, I am coming up on 6 years sober myself this December, and uh, it, it it's a tough journey. Um, I don't care who you are or what your background is. You know, getting sober is a really difficult choice to make sometimes. Sometimes it's a really easy choice to make. Um, like for me, making the choice actually was fairly easy, but the follow through was difficult.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know, and some months have been harder than others. And I mean, last year was the hardest year I've had so far testing my sobriety. So I just want to say I understand what you're going through, and I'm really fucking proud of you for making that decision and following through.
Thank you, man. It means a lot.
You got it. Um, Also, you know, I am so happy to hear that the overall message coming from you guys is about mental health awareness, because coming up in the punk scene in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was probably the subject that was the furthest thing away from anyone's mind, writing records, punk rock records back then. Um, you know, the whole idea, the whole message back then was like, fuck the system, fuck everyone, and let's get fucked up.
yeah,
You know, um, especially in the street punk scene. You know, like there is not another scene that I have encountered in my lifetime that has glorified drinking or beer,
Yeah.
you know, as much as the street punk scene has. And what's funny about that is I went you know, my whole career with the Havoc, never even touching a drop of alcohol. It wasn't until after I got out of the scene that I started drinking. Uh, and, you know, progressively got worse as the years went on because the metal scene is also, you know, live it up,
yeah,
Yeah.
which I was doing. I was having a great time until I wasn't having a great time anymore.
Yep.
um, but you know, coming out the other end of that, and then also coming back into the street punk scene with the Havoc and doing a new record and being introduced to newer bands, younger bands, and getting to know what their state of mind is was actually really mind blowing for me. To see that like they actually give a fuck about mental health and that it's not taboo to them.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So I commend you guys for that. I think it's awesome. And I think that our scene needs that so much because I've always believed that the punk scene attracts the people that are basically cast aside. They're outcasts on some level. They don't have a
Yep.
healthy family life, healthy home life. Um, and they're looking for acceptance somewhere.
yeah,
And a lot of times the punk scene is that place. And sometimes it's for good reason, and sometimes it's not. And I think that that's also one reason why the scene can be very toxic. No matter where you're at or what age the people are, it's people coming from these difficult situations that are looking for a home and something that is going to make them feel like they fucking matter. And the music does that for them.
Absolutely.
Um, but to know that there's bands that are writing new music that the focus is on that, not just the message of acceptance, but the importance of your own mental health and the mental health of the community.
For sure.
Yep.
That just fucking floors me, man. I'm super fucking stoked that you guys are paying attention to that.
Yep. Two big words that have been a huge motivation is perseverance and adaptation.
Um, since we're talking about sobriety a little bit, I'm just curious about your journey and if there's some parallels there to my own. Um, have you ever attended AA meetings?
I did, but like a long time ago, and it works for a lot of people. Obviously, it wouldn't be a thing if it didn't. For me personally, uh, I haven't been to a AA meeting in many years. Not in this journey of my sobriety, but it's the religious aspect of it just doesn't really do it for me. And I know that a lot of them say it's not God, it's your higher power is what they say. To me, my higher power is myself, man. Like, it was pure will and determination and just having a set goal of wanting to be better, be my better self, have my daughter, um and that's what did it for me, man, honestly.
Yeah, so there are some parallels there actually, based on what you said. Because for me, when I decided to get sober, the very next day, I attended my first AA meeting. Um, and I thought, because I had gotten sober 2 times before that. The first time was like 9 months, and then the second time was 14 months. But the difference between those times and this time was that I had not yet admitted to myself or to other people that I was an alcoholic. I hadn't come to terms with that. I just thought, okay, I need to like get it under control, rein it in a bit. Um,
Hmm.
but then when I realized, no, dude, I'm a fucking alcoholic and I make really poor decisions when I'm drunk. And every time I drink to get not just drunk, but shit faced blackout drunk.
Yep.
And um, so I wanted to start off on like the best foot forward that I could, possibly take. And so when I went to an AA meeting, it was really mind blowing for me because I didn't realize like how vulnerable people could be in those meetings when they share. And you could share whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference for me because I was able to get up there and share my shit and uh, just putting it out there uh, helped me come to terms with it. But the issue that I took with it is the same that you took. There's this emphasis on a higher power or God. And, I don't look to that for my own life to become the best version of myself that I want to be. Uh, as a kid growing up in a Christian household, going to church every Sunday, living in the Bible Belt, all of that. I learned from childhood about prayer and, asking God for forgiveness and asking God to help you become, this ideal creature, you know. But one day I took a look around at my life and I realized, I've been doing this for so long and I'm not happy with the results. Why is that? And I realized that I kept asking somebody else to fix my problems instead of
Yes,
taking responsibility for them and fixing them
exactly.
myself. And so throughout my journey of sobriety, I also started therapy at that same time. And that was a huge wake up call for me because I had to walk out of those therapy sessions and those AA meetings and look at who I was and
Mm.
not who other people thought I was and come to terms with who I am and all of my flaws and own up to those things. So I didn't want to ask and I refused to ask some higher power to resolve my issues for me. The,
Accountability.
yeah, the man that I am today, I'm that man because I made that choice.
Yep.
I'm that man because I accepted those responsibilities and I put my best foot forward. I didn't ask somebody else to do it for me and I didn't ask for their fucking help either.
Nope.
I just made the decision to do it.
Yep.
Now, having said that, if somebody on their journey feels like that's the right approach for them and it works for them and it's helpful for them and it puts them in a better place mentally and emotionally and it puts them in a healthy state of mind, fucking A, man, go for it. I'm
Yeah.
stoked for you. I'm glad you found that for yourself, you
Right.
know? But for me, that's not what I needed.
Yeah.
And it's not what I want. I want to wake up every morning and look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm the man that I am today because I made those choices. I put in the work and I'm happy with who I am because I made those sacrifices, because I made those choices.
Yeah, man.
So fucking hats off to you, dude. And I'm glad that you had that same realization. I'm gonna say one more thing though before we move on. That actually was really eye-opening for me in AA. Uh, for those of you watching that aren't familiar with AA, they have this book, they call it the Big Book, and it outlines the 12 steps. Um, and what I learned very early on from reading in the Big Book is that there is a certain personality type that usually is the type that becomes an alcoholic. And one of the things that it outlines with that personality type is constant irritability, never satisfied, you know? Um, and as I was reading that for the first time, I realized this is me. Everything that this is outlining, this is me. This is my personality. And so what I took away from that is that I don't have a drinking problem. I have a personality problem. And I'm using alcohol to try and tame that personality. But instead of taming it, it's just having it grow more and more out of control.
Yeah.
Um, so I was glad that I discovered that through my process of AA because it really did help me turn a corner.
Big discovery.
Yeah. But again, it's just that acceptance and acknowledgement and responsibility.
Yep.
Own your shit and work
Yeah.
through it. Um, we've covered a lot of shit uh, over the course of this interview. I don't even know how long we've been going at it. It's been quite a while.
Yeah. I definitely lost track. It's been fun.
That's the best conversations though, when you lose track of time.
Right.
Um, I would like to know kind of what you guys have planned for the future as far as shows are concerned. I know you mentioned some shit that you've got going, uh, with Exploited and Total Chaos. Are there any other festival shows that you guys are going to do, or anything else that you want people to know about?
Yeah, we're gonna be hitting the West Coast again, playing LA Punk Invasion in March 2025, and gonna be more than likely planning probably like a week around it, doing some West Coast shows. Still in the works. It's still a ways away too, but definitely looking forward to Punk Invasion. Tons of badass bands. Like I don't even know how many bands are on this bill, and it's one day. I think what, 2 stages.
Yeah, I think there's 2 stages.
2 stages, and it's going to be a madhouse. It's going to be crazy.
Definitely, man.
And
Well, I'm stoked that you guys are getting back out there to the West Coast.
yeah, it's about this due time. It's been 2 years since we've been out there.
Hell yeah.
We're working really hard right now, really focusing on writing this next record. And it's if I could talk about that for just a second, we're adding a new dynamic to
Okay.
this record. A new
We're adding group vocals,
and it's adding in a really cool dynamic that we're really stoked about. It's always been just me and Jordan doing vocals, always has been, and we're comfortable with it. But we just kind of came up with this idea and rolling with it. And these new songs that we're pumping out, we're what 6 songs, 5 songs,
Yeah,
about
six
6 songs
like
in right now. And dude, there's something else, man. Like the writing, like we're so happy and have so much pride in Above the Ashes. And then the writing that we're doing right now for this next record is even better, man. It's so much better, and we're so stoked about it. And we think these group vocals are going to be a game changer for us for sure.
That's awesome, dude. Gang vocals are like one of my favorite things on a record, and not just a punk record. Like if I hear it in a metal record or whatever, I'm like, fuck yes, this sounds so good.
Right.
Yeah, it's always been something we've been missing, but we were a 4-piece for a long time, and our bassist he wasn't going to do vocals, you know. So since the lineup changed, we became a 5-piece. We got a new bassist, and we still love our old bassist Laramie, but he had to step down. So we got our new bassist Robbie. He used to be a frontman in a band here in Atlanta.
Old friend of ours.
He plays in one of my other bands that we do group vocals together and stuff. So it just made sense to finally add it in. And then we got Icky on rhythm, and he does vocals in his other band too, backup vocals. So it all just finally fell into place. But it's always been the one thing we've been missing, especially like our chorus. It could be a lot more catchy with, you know what I mean, sing alongish type shit.
Fuller,
Yeah.
stronger.
So we've always felt like that was a dynamic we were missing. So we finally got it. It's just we were gonna do it on Above the Ashes, but it wasn't gonna at the lineup that we wrote it with. It wasn't gonna work out live. So kind of why do it? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So we're to do that on this next album. No, it'll definitely be a new Rotten Stitches sound, but it'll still be us. You know.
Cool. Um, the first time I heard "Here We Are" by Global Threat, when that record came out, the gang vocals on that, I was like, fuck yes. That is the sound. Those gang vocals just sounded so huge.
Yeah.
And today, like, I mean, they still sound good, but there's a lot more, recordings now, modern recordings with gang vocals that I've heard where I'm just like, oh my God, this just blows me away. Um, in fact, one that I came across recently that I was not expecting gang vocals to be on at all, is a record by D. Snyder called Leave a Scar. Have you guys heard that fucking record?
No.
So, for those of you watching that aren't familiar with D. Snyder, he is the front man of Twisted Sister. He's been in the game a long time, and he's got to be in his late 60s, maybe even 70 now.
Yeah.
But he's done 2 solo records over the last 5 years, I think, and both of them were produced by Jamie Josta of Hatebreed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first one was cool. I can't remember what that one's called. But the most recent one is called Leave a Scar. And just the songwriting on it is fantastic across the board. But the gang vocals on it, I mean, the first time I heard them, I was like, holy shit, this sounds like a hardcore band. Those vocals sound like hardcore band. And then I learned that Jamie Jossa produced it. And I was like, oh, okay, fucking Hatebreed. That makes sense.
That's cool. I'm gonna pick that out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
real.
dude, listen to it. It'll blow your mind. But yeah, man, that's rad that you guys are gonna start incorporating that. I'm curious to hear it.
Yeah, you're gonna love it, dude.
Hell
I think
yeah,
a lot
man.
of people take it really well.
Cool. Well, before we wrap this up, is there anything else that you guys want to touch on? Anything that you want to plug?
Shit. I really can't think of anything.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
Go fucking stream our album, order off Charge, order off Voltage, order it from us. We got them.
Yeah, please support the new record. We're very happy with it, and we've got nothing but good feedback on it.
And stay tuned for upcoming shows.
Yeah.
What about merch, t-shirts and shit? Where can people get that?
There is a exclusive T-shirt for one of the songs that David is featured in on the record called "In Death Size." There's a new design, a really awesome artist. A lot of bands have been using. I know Casualties have been going to him relentlessly. So have we. Nana.
Yeah.
Cool shirt design that is exclusive only to chargedrecords.com with the record. And we actually just released another new shirt design for the song Warriors that David Disorder, shout out my man, he is printing as we speak for the Exploited tour.
Hell yeah.
We got that. Those In Death Size shirt. That might be the only time and only place you can get those is from Charge Records. We don't know if we're ever going to get another shipment of those. So jump on it. It's a cool ass shirt.
Cool.
But you do have to buy the record too. You can't just go buy the shirt. You got to buy the record.
Oh, so it's a package deal. Okay.
Yeah.
$40 bundle deal, which isn't too bad.
Did you guys do different color variants for this record?
We did. We have 2. We got like a cool pink splatter one, pink and black, and then there's that's called Punk Puke, and then there's another called Panama Canal that's it's a split, half blue, half green. They're both really cool though.
Hell yeah. I love that, man. Those different color variations. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I just want to say I really enjoyed this interview. It's so good to catch up with you guys. So cool to hear about all of the progress that you've been making and what's on the horizon. And I am excited to hear what you guys are going to be working on in the future. I can't wait to see you guys again live. I'm hoping that's going to happen sooner than later.
Hope so, man. We need to get together again soon, man.
Absolutely, man. I know we would like to come back on the East Coast and do some shit. So whenever that is going to be a thing, hopefully we can do some stuff.
Let's do it, man. That'd be great.
And man, thank you for having us as your first ones back. We're stoked to be back on this.
Hell yeah, man. I'm stoked to be bringing it back. And I'm glad that you guys were the first band. And once this stuff gets out there, be sure and, tag it on socials, the game.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll let you guys know an air date as soon as I know, after I get it pieced together and everything.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited you're bringing it back too. I used to listen to it religiously. So I'm excited to see you doing it this way now. So without those those technical
Interruptions.
issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll work out a lot better for you. But I'm stoked for you, man. I love this little podcast thing you're doing.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. If there's some other bands that you think should come on here, send them my way, and I'll check them out.
Horribles.
Oh yeah, the Horribles are great.
Good guys, man. Drake's a good friend of ours, and they just got a new drummer.
Oh, okay.
So they're getting ready to start hitting the road more. So I'm sure they have some plans up their sleeves. They probably have a lot to talk about.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll hit them up.
Cool.
Cool, man.
All right, guys. Well, you take care, and I will talk to you sometime in the near future.
Yes, sir. You do the
Yes,
same.
sir,
All right,
man.
guys. Later.
Later, dude.
Peace.